Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is episode 222 of the AwardsWatch Podcast. I'm your executive editor, Ryan McQuade. Joining me today is Dan Bayer.
It is not past my jail time.
And Josh Parham.
Hello, hello.
Gentlemen, we are recording this literally 10 minutes after the Academy Awards. The 96th Academy Awards has ended. We've ended at a decent amount of time. That means we can record this and easily get a good night's sleep, even though we lost an hour of sleep, right, Josh? Right? That's one good thing, right? Tonight.
Silver linings, yes.
Silver linings.
I mean, there were a lot of good things tonight. Let's not over exaggerate.
We're gonna talk about it all. We're gonna give our overall thoughts on the night. So, what we thought of the winners, some losers, the ceremony itself. Kimmel, and everything in between. As we did last year, we're going to go full anatomy of an Oscars tonight, full autopsy. But we do know who did it, who won Best Picture. Some of us, once again, not to brag, have known since August what was going to win. But, inevitability strikes at 9:40 Central Standard Time. And Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer won Best Picture, winner of 7 Academy Awards, tying last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once, for the same amount of Oscars. Not able to get 8, what some people predicted. That would have been the most since Slumdog Millionaire. Not able to get over 8, which would have been the most since Return of the King. So it did not get there, but it still had a heck of a night. A couple of interesting categories that we'll talk about. But Dan, I'm gonna kick it over to you here, since Dan's actually recording this right next to me. Just for everybody out there that is wondering how we're recording this. Dan, what did you think of the overall show, the Oscars tonight?
Overall, I thought it was a good show. It was kind of safe and it was entertaining, but not so much so. It felt like an average Oscar show, but not bad, which is a really, really good thing. I was shocked that Kimmel actually let himself get a little political at the end there. That was a drag queen worthy read. And I was glad for that, but that was pretty much the most bite that anything had the whole night. We really sort of relied on the winners to give good speeches to make it a great ceremony. I think a little more than usual. But I was still very, very glad with the presentations of the acting Oscars. I thought that was really beautifully done. And hey, they managed to bring it in under 3.5 hours. So I'm sure ABC is very happy.
I feel that the ratings should do pretty well, since there's obviously Barbie and Oppenheimer, 2 very popular films. These movies were very popular. You have performances from like Billie Eilish and Ryan Gosling, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, Josh, your opinions. Let's just say your opinions on the start of mostly on just Jimmy Kimmel, because you and I, Josh, we like our traditions, just like Dan, and it seems like our new tradition is Jimmy Kimmel. This is his 4th year doing the show, because his writing staff have done a decent job in the past couple of years. He's become the safe option because nobody else wants to do this, right, Josh? So I kind of thought it was a little bit of his lesser of the 4, especially even lesser than last year, but not terrible. Josh, what did you think of Kimmel's work here?
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that. I have never really been a big hater on Kimmel. Okay. I get that he's very safe and kind of boring, but yeah, nobody wants the job. So it's like, this is who you get to do it. And like, he's safe, he's down the middle. The host is usually the thing I care about the least with the show anyway. So I've usually just been like, fine, whatever. He's a decent host. I do agree with you, though. This time it felt a little flat to me. Like, it wasn't anything that I would say was overtly terrible, but like after the fifth dad joke
I
he
was going to
played. It's
say,
like, okay, I mean,
yeah.
we can sort of move on from this. This is feeling very tiresome. It almost feels like a last minute thing. Like they just scrambled for jokes and that was what they were going with. And yeah, he didn't do anything to derail it, but he didn't really do much to elevate the show for me either.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because like I watched CBS this morning and leading up to this, and they did a whole piece with Kimmel, and they had like what he said to be like around 10,000 jokes written for this by like at least 20 to 30 different writers, and then it just didn't feel like it had the same kind of, I don't know. He had taken a couple of years off in between his second to third. There was the whole Will Smith controversy last year. So it was like, and we finally had a host, like just a single host. So it was like, okay, well, like, it felt like it was like, wow, back into more of a traditional form. And then this was just like a little bit more cruise control than normal. But Dan alluded to it. The presentation of the acting categories, and that's I think where we can start with the acting categories and kind of talk about them. I thought that the presentation wise, I thought it was good, but I thought that because of who they selected, which there weren't that many, it was a lot more recent winners and not a lot of like legends like we did 15 years ago. The crowd didn't seem to get up on their feet nearly as much until the end for Best Actress. They seem to kind of be very short and quick. I don't know. It wasn't to the full extent because I thought supporting actor and actor were kind of mixed bags, but supporting actress and actress for me were really the ones that actually worked. Josh, what did you think of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially supporting actress kind of put us on a high that the rest of them were never going to be able to reach because like as soon as they introduced Da'Vine Joy Randolph with Lupita Nyong'o, I was like already starting to tear up, and
Yeah.
that persisted through the other presentations all the way to the end of her speech. So that one was really good. The other three were decent, but they didn't have the same emotional impact that the first batch had. So I still like the idea. I still very much appreciate getting that time to spend with those nominees right before, they're about to reveal the winner. But yeah, the first one was the best and maybe unfortunately set up a standard that the other three didn't really match.
Well, Dan, you were kind of saying it almost felt like in the past when they did this, that the presenters felt like they wrote those, and that this felt more like the writing team for Kimmel and the Oscars kind of wrote it more, and it didn't feel, I guess, nearly as personal, right? As we would expect this to be.
Yeah, I remember the last time they did them, like those presentations went on, like they were like 5-10 minutes long. They went on for forever. And like us Oscar nerds who really love the history and the community of the Academy in Hollywood, like that's really cool. But I get that, they have other concerns and they need to, keep their eye on the clock, so to speak. So I wasn't necessarily surprised that the presentations were much shorter than they were last time, but I was surprised that like for the most part, I really didn't feel like what they said felt super personal. It felt kind of generic, like anyone could have said a lot of those things, except for like certain things, like specific. My favorite is the bit that Nick Cage did for Paul Giamatti about the contact lens, which that was absolute. That felt like him, but the other ones, they all kind of felt just very kind of bland and nice, like what any presenter would say about them, which is fine. And I still really liked the personal touch of having a different person saying something about each of the nominees. It still confers a sense of history that I really enjoy, even if the execution was not at the level that I would have wanted it to be at.
Yeah, I just thought it was a little stale, especially in supporting actor. That whole well, then that was also the mess up by Tim Robbins saying that De Niro basically should win, which is like, okay, well, we know who you voted for. And like Christoph Waltz doing Ken was Ryan Gosling was just
no, I loved that though.
I love that too.
It was great, but then it's like it's just jarring to go then to Mahershala to Ruffalo and it be like sort of back to standard, and it's like it was wild. It was a weird ride through that category. It
really was. But I loved Christoph Waltz monologuing about Ken from Barbie. Like I never knew I needed that in my life until I saw it happen.
Same. That was very much a like, I don't know who came up with this, but give that person a raise.
Honestly, that's probably his best performance since Django. I mean, to be fair, I mean he was into it. Let's talk about the supporting actors wins. So Da'Vine Joy Randolph was the first award on the night.
Incredible.
And she did exactly what I've been criticized for, but thought that it made sense in that put the damn paper away and we can get a really beautiful moment. And I think she was one of the best speeches of the night, really set the tone. I almost was brought to tears by just how much this meant to her, and just a beautiful end to one of the most dominant performances in award season history. Like it was pretty historic, her Oscar trail this year, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And even when I was like, like doing my final like last look down the predictions and even thinking about like, well, who would I vote for? I got to that category and went like, yeah, actually, I would vote for Da'Vine in this category, and that's kind of boring, but yeah, she really is the best, I think, in that category. I loved her speech. I loved that she finally just seemed to do it extemporaneously or had memorized notes or whatever, but it let her really be in the moment in a way that she hasn't in the previous televised wins that she's had, and it was so genuine and beautifully presented. It was a real high. That whole category was a high to start the evening on.
Yeah. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. And I agree that she was the best performer in that category. I will admit, not a strong category this year overall, but still, I think very, very deserving. And yeah, I thought what she had to say was really beautiful. It was, to me, by far my favorite speech that she gave this whole season. And yeah, when it cut away to Paul Giamatti, who had tears in his eyes, like I was right there with him. It was a very, very moving moment.
Anyway, he helped her up on the stage.
Yeah.
That was the only way Paul Giamatti could get up on the stage tonight. When you really think about it,
Yeah, it's true.
It's not like he was winning that Oscar. I'll tell you that. Supporting actor. Honestly, I'm gonna say it. I like this win. I like this win a lot. But and I actually do agree with Tim Robbins. It should have gone to De Niro, but that's another story for another time. I was very underwhelmed by the speech, and I'm really disappointed in it because we kind of felt that he was leading up all season, right, to an emotional moment, maybe to talk about his dad, and we never got there. And Josh, I don't know about you, but I felt like it was a real wasted moment by Robert Downey Jr.
Absolutely. I felt very underwhelmed by that moment. And yeah, I think that with the last time we talked about this category, we were saying like we thought he was gonna be saying a really special thing for this big moment because like obviously he knew he was winning, and it just really died up there. I did not feel any sense of real elation, to be honest with you. And I think it's a good performance. I think that this is a really good best supporting actor win, but I did not like this speech at all. I feel like he peaked at the Golden Globes and everything has been downhill from there. And Yeah, he's got an Oscar, great, but I did not feel anything from this speech. When he started off by saying, "I want to thank my bad childhood," I kind of felt like, well, maybe he's not going to say something about his dad then. But it's so weird to produce an entire documentary about your father and then like the person who literally birthed you into the industry and not say anything
and put you in his movies. Like,
yeah, his first film credit is like at 5 years old in one of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That felt very weird not to say anything about his dad. So it's like, congratulations, but I did not like this speech. It probably was my least favorite of the 4 acting winners that we got.
Yeah.
The fact that he made a point to shout out his stylist when he is usually the least stylish of the nominees in that category was a choice.
There you go. There you go. Okay. So there were a ton of other categories. We're not going to go down every single one of them because we don't have 3 hours. Like, come on. Y'all know better than that. But I do want to talk about some interesting categories, some close races that as the night was unfolding, just our overall opinions on them. So I'm gonna run through these real quick. Obviously, there was a stretch where it was 3 straight wins for Poor Things, winning production design, costume, and winning in makeup. Josh, I'm not going to get into the overall feelings of a later category with you when talking about this with Poor Things, but definitely this showed sign of strength for this. And I think this also, Josh, it is the recurring theme of, and there's something I was telling Dan of, whatever we feel has passion in the moment is maybe what we should be picking, right? And maybe the stronger films is the one that we should be picking in other categories, because this, I mean, talk about it from, I guess, Maestro's perspective, Josh, of just how that campaign fell apart, and now it walked away with 0 for 8, right? Is what it,
7.
or 0 for 7, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, 0 for 7 is still not good. It's still
no, but like, don't make it even worse.
Don't make it. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to, but I don't know. Just kind of talk about those craft wins, because those were close races all the way until the vote.
They were. I mean, but we always knew they were in, like, it was going to be Poor Things or something else. Like, everybody kind of felt that. The production and costume design and makeup. Yeah. I mean, it is a bit surprising to me, the makeup one, just because obviously Maestro's very typical winner there, but there was a lot of passion for Poor Things. And in costume and production design, that was one where I saw a lot of people split in those two, but I never really felt like it was going to split, that one movie was going to take both. And I just really couldn't see it, doing 2 different movies. I felt they were going to be a package. And clearly at the end of the day, people felt that Poor Things, I mean, Poor Things and Barbie, both incredible production and costume design, but there is a little bit more in Poor Things. I feel like the fact that they have to create entirely new worlds, I think, is something to take into account there. And also the movie was a little bit more well liked, I think. So yeah, I think what this entire night has shown me is that we are kind of entering an academy that is really going to be going with passion for the movie and not necessarily what people have done leading up to that moment.
Yeah, I think precursors are going to get a little bit lessened as it turns to passion,
which is good. I like,
which is good, but
makes the prediction game more interesting.
Yeah, because Dan, I want to talk to you about a probably the craziest category outside of actress that we were all trying to figure out. I mean, Dan shows up at South by Southwest, just to not to drag you under the bus. And one of the first things he said to me, Josh, was, "What are you doing in Best Visual Effects?" And I went, "I don't fucking know. Like, how am I supposed to pick this?" But it ended up going to Godzilla -1, which we kind of all wanted. Like, we didn't not want it. It was the best movie out of the bunch. It deserved it the most. But because we know this Academy and they don't like to give us nice things, we'll talk about that also in a little bit. It just didn't feel right, but it ended up pulling the upset. I mean, Dan, is that strictly just about passion, or should we have just, how do you look at that race now with this win and what it might say going forward?
I have no clue.
Well, thanks for doing a podcast where we're trying to talk about the outcomes of this race. No, come on.
Well, I'm gonna talk through it. Okay,
I got you.
I'm gonna work my way there. This is the first time since the 1990s, like the early to mid 90s, that a movie has won here without any other nominations elsewhere.
It's pretty cool.
So it's really cool, and with a statistic like that, it really is a kind of out of nowhere win. It's also the first. Pretty sure it's the first foreign language feature second after All Quiet last year to win in this category.
All Quiet didn't win last year.
Wait, wasn't it Avatar?
No, that was
Avatar won last year.
Sorry,
it is the first Japanese film to win in this category.
It's the first Godzilla film to ever win an Oscar.
Yeah,
it was the first one to ever be nominated for an Oscar. So good job on that series for batting 1,000.
It's. I think that there are a few things that may have contributed to this win. One is that the VFX team was really making the rounds, and they were bringing those Godzilla figurines everywhere with them. And that is a sort of thing that, like, you have something like that, those figurines, people instantly want to look at them and talk to you about them, right? So, since we know that not all Academy members watch all the movies that are nominated, right? Even though they should, but that's a different conversation for a different day. So my thing with this was that, like, I think that Godzilla would win if enough people saw it, but have enough people in the Academy seen it. And I saw a lot of people comparing this to RRR, and I'm like, that they're not really compatible. I mean, RRR had a serious Best Picture push last year. Godzilla did not. Neither of them were selected for international features. So, like, I feel like those were two very different things, and also in two very different categories. But people saw the movie is what it came down to. And I think it's unquestionably the best movie nominated. Whether or not it's the best visual effects in the category people can debate that. But I think that in the movie, they're the most effective of the nominees. And it's really, I think what it comes down to is that, people saw it, and they saw what we all saw in it.
Yeah. Let's go to speeches, because those were some tight races. And I think some of the best speeches of the night came in the middle of the show, especially when Jonathan Glazer won or accepted the award for the United Kingdom for winning Best International Feature for The Zone of Interest. I thought that was beautiful, given everything that was going on. I mean, just to give a little context also, too, the Oscars were late for the first time in all of our lives, because there were ongoing protests outside of the Dolby Theater. It was basically protests for a peaceful resolution within Gaza, and it was Palestinian protesters and sympathizers outside. It was a big crowd, and then a lot of the stars ended up having to get out of their cars and walk on Hollywood Boulevard, essentially over to the Dolby, instead of getting dropped off in the front. So it delayed a lot. But no, I thought it was one of the best speeches of the night in terms of him denouncing his religion. He is Jewish, and Glazer, and saying how ashamed he is of his people for the genocide that's going on right now. And I thought, to make a movie like that, and to then also be very of the moment and understanding that history is repeating itself in the other way, I think just once again proves not just the vitalness of that film, but the vitalness of Jonathan Glazer understanding the moment and not making it about himself, but making it about the larger issue I thought it was quite beautiful. Josh, did you have another speech, particularly? I mean, it seemed like the middle of the show had some great speeches. Were there any speeches outside of the main actors that really stuck with you from the telecast?
I mean, Glazer's speech, was very powerful. I think the other one that you absolutely have to mention is 20 Days in Mariupol. I think that hands down just had everybody silent and so focused on the gravity of every single word that he said, and it was incredibly powerful. I think that would probably be my favorite, even though I do love that Glazer did mention the other current events that are happening. I think that just the tone and gravity that you got in the moment when 20 Days in Mariupol won was just sort of unmatched by anybody.
Yeah. Dan, did you have a speech? Was it for best live action short? I think Wes Anderson's speech was pretty. It was pretty long. Wait, I'm sorry, he was not there. That's right. Wes Anderson was.
Fuck you, Ryan.
He was stuck inside a pipe organ from the 1900s, and
he was in bed. He had his little slippers on. He was reading an antique book.
Exactly. He was listening to a Edith Piaf record. You know what I mean?
One of the best jokes of the night was about him in the diorama made of corduroy.
Yeah, that was really good by Kimmel. Yeah, but no, did you have a good speech that you really loved?
As a Jew who shares many of the same feelings, Jonathan Glazer's speech was like manna from heaven. That is for me, the Zone of Interest winning international feature, that is a 10 out of 10 win. That speech was a 12 out of 10. It was perfect. I loved that he came out and said, we made this movie about today, in addition to about back then, and called it out, because that's the one thing that no one has really had the balls to say at any of these events that have happened this season. And after all the calls in past seasons for peace in the Ukraine, that said something. And I think that no matter, look, it's an impossible situation out there, and I don't claim to be an expert, but humanity is humanity, and we have to acknowledge everyone's shared humanity.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite speech of the night. I'm pretty sure I also liked Chernoff's speech for 20 Days in Mariupol. This may be a little unpopular, but I love the dynamic between Billie Eilish and Phineas in their, whenever they give speeches. I just love that she just goes off on her little, I don't know what to say thing, and he knows exactly what to say. Yep. She is the emotion and he is the business, and they do really well together. And I thought that was such a genuine moment from them, even though I'm sitting there thinking, neither of these people are 30 yet, and they have 2 Oscars, and here I am in my life. What the fuck have I done?
Yeah, not great. I don't like that. I don't like that.
Josh is like, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I do not like somebody who was born in 2001 having 2 Oscars. I don't know. I do not approve of that.
And Ryan and I were talking about this. They're absolutely going to win at least one more before their career is over.
Yeah, it's not even fucking
at
close.
Least.
Yeah, at least one more. I'm sure Barbara Broccoli's going to call him one more time. They're going to win for another Bond song. Like, it's even if they don't perform it, they're just going to write it. Like, you know. No, I thought that was a great speech. Also, I mean, one of the big fun upsets of the night was the Zone of Interest winning Best Sound. And I thought that speech was great because like it was talking about essentially like, you know, thank you for hearing our film. If you to really understand the Zone of Interest, you need to hear that film, and you need to feel it in various ways. And so I thought that was also just a really poignant moment in that speech. Josh.
There's one other speech that I want to shout out.
Oh, okay.
And
Sorry.
that's Cord Jefferson's.
Oh.
Because yes. I missed it, but someone posted it later. He said something like, instead of making one $200 million movie, why don't you make 10, $20 million movies? And it's so rare that an Oscar winner will use their speech to kind of take a little nibble on the hand that feeds them like that. And I thought it was ballsy and so in line with the content of the movie that he won for that I have nothing but respect.
Yeah, I mean, the $200 million or $300 million movies that were nominated against him, two in his own category, are pretty good movies, and made back a lot more money than his did. But okay, sure, Cord. I understand what the sentiment is. No more Babylons and flops. Right? Is that what he was saying? No, I'm just kidding. I think the sentiment is absolutely right because, but his movie is also financed by Amazon as well too. So it's a little bit of like, we live in a weird place, but don't forget. I think the thing is, don't forget about independent cinema. Is really the way it should have been phrased. But he was also extremely nervous and excited. He was on that campaign all year. He is one of those winners. Like, people out there may be mad about Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach losing, or maybe Nolan or Glazer or Tony McNamara losing. But Cord Jefferson was one of those, like, it was almost like and Sophia Simonello is going to listen to this and get very angry, but it's very Kenneth Branagh, where they have been on the trail all season long. They have been accepting awards all season long. Their movie was popular. This is the one place to reward them and the person that is responsible for the whole thing existing in the first place. And they did so, and they gave him adapted screenplay, and he kind of took all the prizes in a year that was like dominated by Poor Things and Barbie and Oppenheimer. For that movie to been like, no, we're still going to give that screenplay. It's
steamroll.
It's still wild. I mean, it's.
I would never have predicted that. I was even predicting this movie to win this award, like, pretty much since I saw it in the fall. So, but even then, I would never have thought it was like going to win BAFTA. And to me, it was a movie that just always seemed like something that would win a screenplay prize, just based on the premise and the way that people do like that movie. But the response to it was just so overwhelmingly positive that eventually just became impossible to deny that it was going to win. I always had a feeling about its chances here. And the fact that Cord Jefferson was an exceptional campaigner certainly helped.
Yeah. Also, if you go over to original screenplay, we speak of passion, Anatomy of a Fall, its entire passion has been around that screenplay. It's been the film back at the festivals, again, that's just carried the Neon doing once again a wonderful job getting maybe messy, maybe not messy, the dog somehow there. If it was like a fake dog, I don't think it was the actual dog. But just always, a really good campaign by them, always having that movie in the conversation. For it to win an original screenplay when we all kind of, at the time we thought it might be Barbie or Past Lives or The Holdovers. Thank God it was not The Holdovers, given the fucking news that we heard about potentially that being a plagiarized screenplay. If that
bullet dodged,
if that would have happened, it would have been a really awkward night at the Oscars. Let's just say that. Those pieces write themselves, right, Josh? Like, we would have been like, I don't know about that,
it was never going to happen anyway. So
no. I wanted to transition real quick before we get into the top four categories real quick after this. The performances. There's always the performances. Josh, it's probably going to be the thing that everybody talks about for this ceremony. I'm going to get it over to you. What did you think of I'm Just Ken's live performance?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, what did I think about Fire Inside?
Well, clearly...
that was the most monumental moment, right?
Becky G getting out there...
They got for it.
Yeah, to be fair, like Becky G, they were like, yeah, let's just throw some random kids up there with her, and like let's see if this will stick. And I mean, they didn't even introduce the Killers of the Flower Moon song. They just were like, you're coming back from a commercial and playing that. Which
they did the Best Picture package for it. That was their lead-in. They did that.
I don't know. It was a little like let's just get rid of this song. It felt a little offbeat.
I will say though, like the cinematography, like the production for that number in particular, the one from Killers, was incredible. I don't know how it looked in the room, because it looked like they really had that circle that was all closed the whole time, but on camera for the broadcast, it looked incredible.
Yeah. And then like, Billie Eilish and Phineas, they were whispering earlier in the telecast.
Whispering sweet nothings into each other's ears.
It's brought to you by Ambien, but it's a beautiful song. But no, I mean, come on, Josh, what'd you think of Gosling?
Yeah, I mean, that was just incredible. It was, and you know what? I'm not even somebody that like loves I'm Just Ken. Like, it's very fun. I think there's like some flaws in the execution just a little bit.
I think you're wrong, because I hear you sing it all the time. You call me all the time, Josh, and you're like, you're singing it, and I'm like, Josh,
exactly me.
I'm at work. It's a little inappropriate,
Yeah. But I think the presentation of that number was, by far the most memorable of the bunch. One of the most memorable moments of the entire show. Just the amount of energy that was brought there. Like, I'm glad that Gosling looked like he was having fun. That was actually something I was a little nervous about, but he brought his A game, and it was very, very fun. I liked it. And you could tell the people in the room loved it too.
I mean, Dan, you and I pointed this out. The gentlemen prefer blondes. Callback. I mean, it felt as if so like
perfect.
It felt like Greta Gerwig directed it more than the producers. Like it was so. I've said this for years, and Dan, I'll see what you think, and Josh, I'll get your reaction too. I have always felt that this song, I need to see the performances a little bit before we give out the Oscar, because this is what the Lady Gaga song all over again, where like, if you watch just the performances, clearly everybody at home's like, well, then now it's got to be I'm Just Ken. But if you play the Oscar game like the rest of us, clearly we knew that Billie Eilish was going to win that song. But like, holy hell, they put in the work and effort, and Gosling was pretty remarkable, and got all the Kens up there. It was great.
That was the best original song performance that I can remember on the Oscars.
Yeah.
I have not enjoyed something that much since like the heyday of the Disney animated feature songs getting in. The pink, from starting in the audience right behind Margot, who clearly did not know that was going to happen, judging by her reaction, and then the pink suit, the whole Marilyn Monroe Madonna thing, and then fucking Slash just comes out of fucking nowhere. I didn't need that. That is by far the easiest guitar line that man has ever played in his life. It was over the top in the perfect way for that song, and it was Oscar appropriate. I absolutely loved everything about that number. It was so nice to see Gosling perform. Like, we knew he had it in him. He was in the Mickey Mouse Club with the Britney and the Justin and the Christina. We know he can do it, but we have not seen him do that. And like, I'll just say it, Ryan, come to New York. We want you on Broadway.
Yeah, like his nerves will allow him to be on Broadway. He's nervous, dude. Like, that was a lot for him to do that. Clearly, it showed he hadn't performed a little bit in a while, but But if you're going to perform like that after a couple maybe rehearsals, like shit.
I mean, it was a little rocky at the beginning.
At the little beginning,
but
yeah.
like after that, he just got out of his system.
Yeah, he got everybody out there.
I mean, he had everyone on their feet. He was throwing the mic to Greta and Mario and America and Emma Stone, which just like sent me.
Grabbing the camera guy and dragging him up on the stage by the hand. I mean, then, Simu Liu getting some work because Lord knows he's going to be unemployed soon. I mean, like, Kingsley Benadir getting up there, which was like, thank God, because
he's better Evans brother.
Yeah. I mean, it was so inventive. I don't know if it's the best performance I've ever seen at the Oscars. I mean, it's the most fun, probably since like Timberlake's opening for Can't Stop the Feeling, because he was the opening in that show and really brought in the crowd and had a lot of fun, regardless of what you think of that song. But he knew how to perform.
Pharrell dancing with Meryl Streep to Happy.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's up there with like seeing Common and John Legend or seeing Lady Gaga's, It Happens to You performances, you know what I mean? Or maybe even like Adele doing Skyfall, because it's just so elegant. Like it's an all-time moment, and it's not something that they had to generate. They just let them create, and they didn't have to it didn't feel forced or manufactured, because and I have to say, overall, the ceremony, it was a pretty successful one because it moved very quickly. It brought back clips and like the presentation of the best picture winners, right, throughout the ceremony. And I wish we lost the actor clips, but we lost those because of the presenters. But then also, like, for screenplay, we got snippets of the screenplay. We got to see Bradley Cooper reining it in, and I think that's the best thing that they actually could have got. Like somebody there at the Academy knew what they were doing.
If they really knew what they were doing, they would have used them playing the bongos on Bomer's ass. I mean, that would have gone viral.
Or Snoopy in the vestibule.
Yes.
Or when he has to hold the cocaine tray up and we're all just gonna do cocaine up here. Let me hold it above my head. You know what I mean? Like, who abandoned like Snoopy in the vestibule? You know what I mean? Okay. I think it's time, Josh. I've given you enough time.
So. Yeah,
I love you, buddy. I've been nice. We got to talk about Best Actress.
That we do.
Josh, you know what? It went to
never betting against BAFTA again. I tell you that right now.
Well, okay, but like,
there's a discussion about.
All right, calm down, internet. All right, like shit.
There's a discussion to be had about that.
There is, but I want to lay this out real quick, and then Josh, I'll give you the floor, and then Dan, you can go right after him. Emma Stone wins for Poor Things. Poor Things walks away with the second most Oscars on the night with 4.
And Kevin Jacobson is very, very happy.
I mean, he's relieved. I don't know about happy.
Fine.
I don't know Kevin's feelings on the film. But we'll see. Her second Oscar. Like Dan, you've said in the past, they come pretty quickly after the last one sometimes. But Lily Gladstone losing this enters now what Eric talked about last week, which is this field that includes Glenn Close. That is something Kevin Jacobson would be really mad about. And Viola Davis twice, where the SAG winner wins, and she's got Golden Globe, and then she's not able to pull away the Oscar. And if you look at that, that means 3 out of 4 times it's been a woman of color losing to a white woman. That's a multiple time winner, because that's Viola Davis losing to Meryl Streep. Mm-hmm. That's Viola Davis losing to Frances McDormand. And now that's Emma Stone beating Lily Gladstone. And then obviously the other one is Glenn Close losing to the last time a Yorgos Lanthimos actress won Best Actress in Olivia Colman. Okay, Josh, floor is yours because the streak is broken. This is your first time you haven't gotten it right in 6 years? Since Olivia, right?
Yeah, I mean, since I have been
since he's been a journalist
doing this, yes.
You are a journalist, and since you have done this.
Yeah.
And I know there's always pressure on you, and I always tell you I feel so bad for you because these people who don't even know you put this amount of pressure on you, and it's not fair. But why, Josh, now that, I mean, we knew this could go this way. It's not like this is a surprise, but why did it go this way, you think?
Well, I think it's very clear, and this was something that I was very much debating in my mind whenever I was thinking about this category, is that you had two conflicting narratives happening with these actresses. One had a very strong narrative, but it was in a movie that clearly they didn't really like that much. And the other one, Emma Stone had things that you could say, well, she's won before, she'll be okay, but they liked Poor Things a lot more. And I think this is a good lesson to really just recognize that what's going to win is always going to be the movie they like more. Like that, it doesn't really even matter what narrative that you have. And I always did sort of feel that way, but it's just that the SAG win really screwed me. It did.
It screwed us all. Because honestly, I was picking Emma and I accepted that.
Yeah.
And then Lily won.
I thought Emma was going to win SAG.
And it genuinely, I said this to Ryan earlier. If Emma was winning the Oscar, her losing SAG makes no sense to me.
No.
Just
not when she had the momentum.
That is the kind of performance that wins at SAG. It is big and actorly, and the kind of subtle performance that Lily is giving in Killers that does not win, much less so in lead actress. But they went for her and Cillian this year too, and I wonder if that's just how they were feeling this year, the subtlety.
Well, I mean, Cillian was in the Best Picture winner.
Fair, but you could argue that Giamatti was a more SAG-friendly performance than Murphy's, given how they tend to vote usually. I mean, and it's interesting that both their lead winners were of that more subtle variety when they don't usually go for that.
True, but it's also, you're talking about a subtle performance in $1 billion movie.
I mean, yes, of course.
Like there are moments where he does go full Oppenheimer on everybody. You know what I mean? Like the Roger Robb scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the whole but yes, I mean, it is also a very talky performance, and he is in every frame, as opposed to Lily, where she's in, less than what people want her to be in, right, Josh? And but then it's also right because people were trying to make the damn comparisons to last year, which is every year is different. The comparisons of Emma Stone was just like Cate Blanchett and saying she didn't want it, and it's Michelle Yeoh's time, just
Emma
it's Lily's
Stone
time.
Never
And
really said that.
No, well, she basically
would have been fine with losing, but
yes, she never said she never went full Blanchett of come on, this is arbitrary. She went I'm beating these women from these people. But I mean, Josh, what else do you have to say about it? I mean, it does reek a little bit though, right, of the Academy looking, obviously loving their favorites, which is something I've said about for years, but it does look really bad though, optics, that they've done this 3 out of 4 times to women of color, that it's clearly in the one that's the second place, the runner up. Right? Right, Josh? It looks bad optics wise that, like you're saying, and like Dan said, she won SAG, which is a giant organization and still a big part of the Academy, and yet wasn't able to pull this out.
Yeah, but the Academy has never really cared about optics all that much.
I understand that.
It becomes so overwhelming. It took the second consecutive year of Oscar So White before they did something. They didn't even do it the first time. It took it happening the second time for them to actually finally react. Yeah. So, and I think also what lessens this blow maybe just a little bit is that, like, look, Emma Stone is incredible in Poor Things. Like, I can't be that mad that that's an Oscar-winning performance because she's great too. Like, and so is Lily Gladstone. Those are two really incredible performances that was hard to pick between. And it does suck that a lot of people, when they want to throw out it shouldn't be about the narrative, it should be about the performance. I do get very annoyed at that because every actor wins based off of a narrative, not just the people of color. Yeah. And I think when you say that, I think it exposes a lot of what you think narrative is about certain performances. But, we don't have to get into that right now. But I just think that what this situation does tell me is that go with the movie that has more passion, which honestly, I've always really believed. I tripped myself up in thinking that SAG was going to be more significant, but I think what balanced out really the SAG win for her was that she didn't make BAFTA, and her not making BAFTA was also a significant indicator that there wasn't as much passion for the performance, because remember at BAFTA, if you're top 3, you're automatically in, otherwise the jury saves you. Well, she wasn't saved by the jury, which means that she wasn't even in the top 3 in that group. And as we have seen, unlike last year, BAFTA held way more significance for the outcome of some of these categories, almost matching completely. I think actually the only category they didn't get was visual effects because they couldn't, because Poor Things wasn't nominated. So
it's this pendulum swing a little bit, Josh, right? Because like last year, the guilds and SAG played a big part of it, but they also didn't when it came to Everything Everywhere All at Once. But they did also show like the below the line categories and gave us a lot of hints there. But then this felt very 2020, where they were clearly lockstep with a lot of things. Every above the line category they were correct on. Below the lines, like you're mentioning too. Even the damn sound win for Zone of Interest is a, and that's, I mean, I think we might have tricked ourselves into thinking that because there was only like maybe a couple days left for SAG, after SAG, there was like maybe 2 or 3 days left, I believe, for the vote. But then when that telecast was happening, but then also too, you have to think about it, Oppenheimer's dominance in the race, which I think is a perfect segue to talking about its Best Picture win. Christopher Nolan now being on the pinnacle of the mountain in Hollywood. He's the Best Picture and Best Director winner. Cillian Murphy winning his Oscar. And the film walking away with 7 Oscars total on the night. I think there might be a little bit of something to, and I don't know if this is just the case, but it kind of feels like with BAFTA, like that there might be a little bit of, some people thought it was a little bit inevitable and maybe they didn't turn stuff in. And that's why, that 25% that's international really dominated as much as they didn't last year. But clearly there's also passion in those categories, and they were some of the best winners I think that we've had overall in years. This is when you look at them, when you look at the Oppenheimer wins and the Poor Thing wins, Barbie's win. I mean, besides, what was it, Dan? Maestro and Past Lives?
The only 2.
80% of the best, I'm sorry, Killers. Well, Killers. So 70% of the Best Picture winners or nominees walked away with an Oscar, which is more than last year, which I think it was about half, or about 6 out of 10 walked away with something. So, I mean, that's shows that they like them and they watch those movies. I mean, you were saying, Dan, that the sound win kind of is a cool win for the Academy that they don't do. And I mean, even these Oppenheimer wins, this is not a usual film that wins Best Picture. You know what I mean? It's a $1 billion movie. I mean, like, this is the highest grossing movie that's won since Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Sweepers we're now, I guess, in an era of 7, maybe 8 wins for an Oscar now. Like, that's 2 years in a row. It's I don't know. Is this a trend or is it just the passion, like Josh is saying, over the last? And is that passion going to lead then to more 7-8 win Oscar films on Oscar night?
Yeah, I mean,
that was a lot to throw at you. I'm sorry.
There was several questions wrapped up in one.
But you have 20 seconds to answer, like the telecast.
Pick my favorite one that I want to answer. No, it's first of all the zone of interest sound win. That made me so happy. Not just because I interviewed Johnny Byrne and know the crazy work that they did to make that happen, but because that is the type of sound work that does not usually get rewarded in this category, even sometimes with a nomination. Best sound usually translates to loudest or movie that they liked the most in this category. And Zone of Interest, it was clearly neither of those, but the sound is so integral to how that movie works. And like, it's one of those things that we talk about some movies, like people have been saying all season, like, if you love Oppenheimer, how do you not award Oppenheimer, the man who played him, to go along with that? And it's sort of thing, like, if you love Zone of Interest, how do you not vote for the sound work? Because that is the movie. But that usually just does not happen. So I think, I don't know, like there's so many theories that you can have, and I think it's gonna take maybe another year or two to see if this was a fluke or if this is a new era in terms of just the films with the most passion behind them, or if it's just a new era. Not even a new era, but like a new academy, a younger, more diverse, more international academy, because we see this happen a lot. I feel like the nominees and in some cases the winners are skewing towards a cooler audience. Like Emma Stone winning for Poor Things, we saw someone tweeted this earlier. I think like it is both the most daring and the most safe choice they could have made. Like that performance, I think that like the only thing that I can think of that comes closest precedent is like Natalie Portman having Mila go down on her in Black Swan.
Well, I mean, the comparisons it's a crazy out there over the top performance, much like the last time Yorgos Lanthimos made a film, maybe a little bit more because there's obviously more sex scenes. Yeah. But there's some sex scenes in The Favorite too. Like you're mentioning it, Dan. I think that and Josh, I don't know if you agree with Dan and what I'm about to say, but we're leaning into a different generation of voters. Like you're saying, you look at the winners tonight, like a Jonathan Glazer movie wins. Anatomy of a Fall,
even
Godzilla, that's not a studio Godzilla. That is a international, small, pretty much independent Godzilla. You're talking about Oppenheimer, which is directed by a generational director for people. Cord Jefferson, brand new voice and face that people would want to work with. Same with Justine Triet. I mean, you're talking about. You're talking about Yorgos Lanthimos, which a lot of people love and think he's cool and has a style that's very unique to his own. Greta Gerwig's, is another.
She's racking up nominations.
And you're seeing a film like Killers of the Flower Moon from Martin Scorsese, another shutout for Martin Scorsese.
A shutout to have 10 nominations and go home empty-handed.
4 straight films where he has 4 or 5 straight films that he hasn't even. He's had films nominated for Oscars and hasn't won a single Oscar. Yes, it's a changing of the guard. I mean, even think of last year with like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Edward Berger's a cool young director, even though he's doing All Quiet on the Western Front. Brendan Fraser, like that tugs at the heartstrings, to give him an Oscar. Like this Academy, and they remember him. Why?
Think of when. Yeah. Think of from when he was a big star.
Yeah. George of the Jungle, The Mummy, when they were younger. And this is the kind of change that we've wanted. It's not going to always result in maybe
the wins that we want,
the wins we want, or diverse wins. But it will result in wins that are different, usually, than the status quo. Because you go from, this is the first Best Picture winner not to have a festival run in since The Departed. Eric tweeted that out. It's also, once again, another film that has won Best Picture that did not go on a fall festival run, which pre-pandemic, that's what you kind of had to do. Even Parasite did that. It went to Cannes and Telluride and TIFF.
And Coda was Sundance.
Yeah, and Coda was Sundance. Everything Everywhere All at Once is South by Southwest, where Dan and I are at currently. And then Oppie was just summer release. So now, more than ever, it feels like a Best Picture winner could come any month out of the year. Maybe not August, and not January. But right. It kind of is liberating. Josh, we're living in a new era, baby. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, that is exciting. I will always be a little resistant to anything that indulges film Twitter's taste, though. So I'm going to be a little mad about that.
You know what, Josh? That's fair.
Because that just gives film Twitter more power, and I don't like that. But
that's fair. That's fair.
But it does seem like we are finally seeing the tide turn a little bit, which is great. It's exciting. I do worry that maybe, you don't want it to turn too much to the point where it's now just predictable, but we'll see. It's as I said, it is a very exciting new venture. Pendulum swings do happen, though. I think we should always be prepared for that, but we'll see. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah. Also, Josh, you brought up the BAFTA no crossover last year. 18 categories this year at the BAFTA 2 Oscar
it
crossover.
Feels like it was nearly everything.
Yeah.
Like except for visual effects, which I if Poor Things had been nominated, would have won.
Well, and they don't have a song category either at BAFTA. So
And their shorts had no crossover either.
No.
But like everything else, I think was exactly the same.
Which is kind of wild, because last year it didn't fully matter at the big stuff. But then
but the thing that was the overriding factor last year was that Everything Everywhere had just so much passion behind it. And I think that is the connecting tissue between those 2 years. If you're looking at BAFTA, is that these are movies that just had the passion behind them. And for some reason, BAFTA just wasn't on that train with Everything Everywhere, but they were on it with Oppenheimer and Poor Things.
Is it also too just, you see somebody, and maybe Dan, you can answer this, and Josh, you can answer this too. This felt like a great group of winners because it felt like people that have these filmmakers they've grown up with, like Wes Anderson winning an Oscar and Christopher Nolan and people have loved Jonathan Glazer for like 20 years and Yorgos has so many big fans. And it goes back to what you're saying, Josh, about passion. Obviously, the indulgence of Twitter, but their indulgence only goes so far, right? Because it's like there are a lot of people that love past lives. They didn't give anything to them. There are a lot of people that love Killers. There are tons of people that love Barbie, and they were like, you can just have a song and that's it. So it's like they're still the Academy. They're still snobs, but they're like becoming like cooler snobs, hipsters. Maybe
they're becoming younger. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They're just becoming younger.
But now I think
cool snob is a hipster. Yes.
Yeah. A cool snob. Thank you, Josh.
That's the definition. Yes.
I was trying to find the right connection there and everything. But going into next year, we've seen the crop of films. It's gonna be really interesting because there's not going to be this big studio film. Like this is a nearly $1 billion movie, an epic of old that usually wins, right? And it felt great to have these winners. If we were doing the Best Picture tier rankings, we'd have an updated film to put in the S tier. I would believe, at least on my. No,
Ryan would be breaking his own self-enforced rules to put this in S tier.
I think I'd have a lot of the staff on my support for that. I mean, Josh has seen it like how many times? And,
yeah. Well, even then, I would still probably would say A. I don't want to put something quite that.
Didn't we put Everything Everywhere All at Once in the S tier?
No, we put it.
No,
in
we
A.
didn't.
Oh, okay.
We put Parasite in S, but like that's the first.
We had a couple years. Yeah.
We put everything.
We had a couple years in like the first non-English language movie to win Best Picture. Like that has to be an S tier.
That's true. That's fair. But this is the highest grossing film of the extended era now.
Of winners, I would have
of the winners of the expanded era.
It's the third highest grossing Best Picture winner of all time. So
yeah, it's a pretty landmark win, and it's I don't think it will be the last time we'll have Christopher Nolan up on a stage, because I thought that handoff tonight between Steven Spielberg and Christopher Nolan wasn't the last. I mean, Spielberg didn't go up there just once; he went up there twice. And if this is a younger generation, they loved him. He got a standing ovation. He was a little seated a little further back to my liking.
Everybody was.
Yeah, that was Josh. The seating arrangements
so weird.
Like I love Robert Downey Jr. as much as the next person, but the lead of that film was 2 rows behind him. Yeah. Like the fuck is going on? Like. That was a little messed up on killing. Like,
it was weird seating choices.
Very weird seating choices.
But you know what? Also, just speaking of Spielberg, great reactions from him throughout the entire show. Like, the man needs to like act in a comedy.
The commitment to the bit with Kate McKinnon was so good.
Yeah. He was great. Yeah.
He was great. Any final things you guys want to say about this? Josh, I'll kick it over to you. This is the last thing you get to say, and then we're done with the season. So let it all out, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the show was fine. It was about what I kind of expected it to be. It wasn't really that amazing. I liked the idea of the winners coming back to present the categories. As I said, it worked really more so the first time. The other 3 wasn't that impressed with. But yeah, like even though there are people that did get things wrong, like none of it was in categories that had a huge shock either. It was like between 1 or 2 options. And if you didn't pick option A, the one that you were thinking of is option B, that ended up winning. And so it's like, even the ones that were like mild surprises weren't really mild surprises. So, which is, I have mixed feelings about, because it's like, yeah, that's good that most people's predictions are great, but then it's also kind of a boring show, from our perspective. And it just sort of felt like everything kind of ended the way that we pretty much expected it to end, which kind of feels like the whole season, honestly. It's been a very monotonous season to kind of get through, which is the reason why a lot of us are fine that it's kind of over with now, even though there's good movies that won, good performances that were recognized, but I'm good that we could shut the book on this. Christopher Nolan's an Oscar winner. Been waiting years to say that. I'm happy about that. So that's where we're at.
And so is Hoyt van Hoytema.
Yes. Even though I wish it was Prieto.
And a 2-time Oscar winner, Hayao Miyazaki. We forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, we got to give Dan his flowers.
Didn't want to gloat.
I forgot about that.
This is the time to gloat.
This is the time to gloat. I mean, I'm about to in about 30 after you're done. Like Josh knows what's coming. Come on now.
Really, I did my gloating for American Fiction. Now,
say it, Josh. Say it. Say it loud. Say it proud about American Fiction. You've had that from the beginning. I'll give you all the props for that, buddy.
Yeah, I definitely wavered some on American Fiction, but I came back around at the end. But The Boy and the Heron, yeah, that one there was something about that reaction to it when we were at TIFF, Ryan, that I felt something in the air with that movie.
It was one of the audience winners.
Yeah.
It was there with American Fiction. Like it didn't finish obviously the number 1, but it was one of the 3.
Yeah, and I think, and that was not even something that I had really factored into my decision-making process at all. That is, I think, a really important thing to remember. Like people were saying everybody loves Spider-Verse. Everybody loves it. It made so much money at the box office, blah, 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 blah. People also really liked The Boy and the Heron. And the other thing that, I kept noticing and kept saying, like, whenever it's an international audience, this movie tends to win. And the Academy has been growing more international. And as we saw, I think especially last year, when you combine last year and this year together, this is just a much cooler Academy than I think we've ever seen before.
It's the kind of change that we've been wanting.
Yeah.
Good ways and bad ways. I get the floor, right?
I have one more thing.
Oh, one more thing, and then I'll get the floor.
Because I want to shout out my favorite presenters of the evening, because I know I said earlier that just most of them were not that great. Yes. Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling.
They understood the assignment very well.
They did, and that was by far the best presenter bit of the night. Like there were maybe only 2 or 3 good bits. And also like anyone who had a twins reunion at the Oscars, getting a standing ovation on their 2024 bingo card. Congratulations, because you are on some good shit.
A lot of truth in that Gosling Blunt bit. Can't wait to see the Fall Guy in a couple of days here at South by Southwest.
Seemed a little bit like they have been listening to our summer movie draft from last year.
Feels like they've been following this podcast for a while. Like the writers of this show know. Maybe Louis Vuitton or somebody's out there listening, because it felt dead on. But also too, they played into it. Those 2 movies are so successful because they had each other, and those casts were willing to have poke some fun in it. They knew it was all over at that point, so you can say whatever the fuck you want to. I tend to not gloat too much about things, but I will just pack this away. Is that I too, Josh and Dan, followed passion and followed just a gut and my heart. Dan will tell you, and Sophia will tell you, that I did waver before the telecast about Emma and thinking that she was going to win. It was just I had a weird feeling about this entire season, to be honest. And it's very lucky. Like this year, I will say it's very lucky. I mean, a lot of the chips fell exactly where they need to be for Oppenheimer to be where it's at. And I'm happy that my favorite film of the year won a lot. And it's the first time since Moonlight. That doesn't happen for all of us ever, where our favorite film ends up winning Best Picture. I think it's a great win, and I think it's one that a lot of people are going to watch for many years to come. It's not going to be one of those that we forget in a couple of years. They're like, what the hell is that? Because like the next time a Christopher Nolan movie comes out, guess what? This is going back in the theaters for a 70 millimeter run. This is going to be at rep screenings for the rest of our lives. And so it's
Ryan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I have to interrupt you, but you keep talking about this like you were the only soldier in Oppenheimer's corner. Like you were fighting off all of the trolls who came out and you were there. Like the movie made almost $1 billion. It's extremely popular. This is not a hot take, Ryan. I'm sorry. We're at the end of the season. And just have to point this out. The way you talk about your defense of Oppenheimer makes it seem like you were the only one in this corner. It's an extremely popular film.
It was, but it was not as popular as like people going out there and predicting Barbie for a while or switching to Poor Things. Like it took people to get to this point. Like trust me, Josh, I've had a lot.
I don't know what those people were smoking.
No, they were smoking. They were resisting this movie a lot. There was a lot of, when I talked to people, resistance on wanting to say that, because it was a front runner from the beginning, and I kept getting a lot of pull from, oh, it's a front runner like Killers of the Flower Moon. It's going to fall off like Fabelmans, like Irishman, like movies that we've seen before. And that's why, Josh, I have been staying pat with it, because so many people for months to my face at places said I was crazy, including people that also work at the site, not on this podcast.
I mean,
on this site.
I mean, I was going to mention that later.
Yeah.
I do think, but I think the vast majority of people thought Oppenheimer was very, very strong.
No, a very, very strong film. But like to say it was like I was saying for months that it was going to walk in there with 5 or 6 or 7, and then it ends up, which is crazy because they're like, you would then have to go against the status quo of saying it's going to get the same amount of Oscars as a rarity that was like last year and Everything Everywhere All at Once. So it is the thing. I know it sounds crazy, Josh, on paper. It doesn't sound that crazy, but in theory, theory will only get you so far, my friend. You got to see the practice in the season, and the season played out how I said they would in the mountains of Telluride. And I think that's something because once you get in the Fall Fest, we're always looking for the holdovers, or there were the weeks of American fiction people talking, or is The Color Purple going to come in at the last second and pull the December surprise? Like, you know what I'm saying? So there were flows to this, or Killers going to be it after all? But it never happened. And so, yeah, I get to pat myself a little bit on the back. Come on, man. Like,
I'm just saying, I think
that's good.
The vast majority of predictions had Oppenheimer at number 1 in the summer. I'm just saying.
No, they didn't. They had Killers. They had Killers and Marty for years. For the last 2 years, it's been him.
Yeah, I think that was something that I didn't notice because Killers premiered at Cannes in May, and then the next month Oppenheimer opened.
And people were like, "It's Killers Opera," but clearly the message of Killers.
Two of them. Yeah. I do remember that moment. But people who were saying it was going to be Barbie or Poor Things.
There were people, doesn't there?
I want whatever they're smoking.
I said they were crazy.
Well,
I mean, Josh, remember, we were told that it was going to be Floppenheimer. I'm just saying, we told it wasn't.
That's all right. I got some things to say off air about.
Yeah, I got you.
Predictions.
I got you, buddy. I got you. Well, do you guys want to predict next year's? No, I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. We don't do
obviously,
that. Megalopolis, Best Picture.
No, it's going to be Twisters.
It's going to be Twisters.
Picture. Glenn Powell, Best Actor.
Actually, it's going to be Hitman. It's not going to be Twisters. Hitman's more. Netflix needs to have a better year next year. They got Hitman.
Well, he'll win Best
Actor, and maybe they will
make a good campaign, and they will. Yeah, just saying.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He can win Best Actor for Hitman, and then also at SAG, the ensemble prize will be Twisters. So
there you go. Two different films. Yeah. Now you guys are getting it. All right. It's been a good year, and I'm so glad that you guys were here. I'm so glad everybody on the team was here with us as we're just going to wrap this thing up. And we're not going to talk about it ever again. This is the same thing I said last year. And Josh knows this. Dan knows this. We're not talking about it again. So if you come up to us on the street, guess what? Doesn't exist. It's 2024 movies now.
Not until we do a retrospective in 10 years.
Are any of us going to be even alive in 10 years? Let's be honest. Global warming's a real thing, guys.
Well, let's see what happens in November.
Josh. If Alex Garland has anything to say about it, right? Anyway, Josh, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at JR Parham, and you can also find my work on Next Best Picture and AwardsWatch.
I feel like I've never been yelled at before by Josh, and Eric and Sophia are going to make so much fun of me tomorrow about it when they hear this podcast. But
it's a long season. Sorry,
it's a long season.
I had to. My apologies.
I'm your friend in arms. If I'm Oppenheimer, you're definitely. What's Isidore Robbie? You're my Isidore Robbie, buddy.
I'll take that.
There you go. It's better than being Louis Strauss. I'll tell you that. Speaking of the Josh Hartnett of the group, Dan Bayer, I'm gonna find you and all your work. See, I gave you a nice compliment.
Thank you, Ryan. You can find me on Twitter at Dance and Dan on Film, on Letterboxd, and post at Dance and Dan. And you can find my writing and some of interviews with Oscar winners at Next Best Picture and AwardsWatch.
You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com, where I have interviews with Oscar winner Cillian Murphy and Oscar winner Cord Jefferson up on the website right now. We have various other, I think there's a bunch of other Oscar, there's a bunch of short winners up on the site as well too. A Freight Dancer did that. So go and read all those past interviews. Those were fantastic stuff from the season. If you're still not over the season and not tired of reading about it, or want to see all of our coverage of South by Southwest, that's over on the website at awardswatch.com. Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Ryan McQuade 77. If you like podcasts, you can listen to this one every Monday. Direct Watch is on Thursday. We're talking about Killer Joe this week on the continuation of our William Friedkin movie series.
Need some of that fried chicken, baby.
Yeah, I don't know about that Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'll tell you that. And iTunes, Spotify, 5 stars. We're gonna be off next week because we all deserve a break, and then we'll be back. And speaking of retrospectives, we'll be back to talk about the 2004 Oscar retrospective with these guys and a couple other crew members on the team. So
I cannot wait.
I cannot wait.
Been doing my homework.
I know. I've been
to my letterbox. Like
I have. I was like,
so, I'm excited.
Josh is doing the work. Yeah, he's just trying not to watch any 2024 movies. He wants to watch 2004 movies. Yeah. And I commend you, Josh.
It's a good year.
It was a good year this year and 20 years ago. We're going to talk about it in full in 2 weeks. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you all next time.